Alright, so now we've got our camels on our book. They don't quite look like they match in with the book, so we're going to make a few adjustments. First thing we need to do is right click on the picture of the book in the layers. This right here is our book, and we are going to rasterize it. So click on the layer, right click on the layer. When this menu pops up, hit rasterize layer. So this turns it into just a regular image that it can work with. You'll notice that it used to have a little icon here that actually meant it was like a smart object that could be changed differently, but we want it to be just a regular picture now, because now that it's a picture, we can right click on this mask, we can apply that mask, and now we're only working with the book itself. So to make sure we don't make any mistakes now that we're actually adjusting the book, we're going to right click on it and we're going to duplicate this layer so that we have two of the same layer now. That's always a good idea when you're going to make a change directly to the image, is to have a copy of it. So we're going to move that copy down and hide it by clicking the eye. So it's just there if we need it, but it's not part of our project that we're working on. Okay, I'm going to click on the book that we can see on the layers, and we want to adjust the color. It doesn't look deserty enough. So let's go up to Image, Adjustments, and we're going to go to Color Balance. We need it to be tinted kind of yellow-orange, like those camels you can tell are in a sunset or similar things. So I'm going to drag this slider towards the yellow some, drag this slider towards the red a bit so it takes on kind of an orangish tint. And once we make it look more deserty, then we can hit OK. So right now you're adjusting the mid-tones, which are the middle grays. If you want to adjust the dark areas of that picture, you'll want to go to Shadow and adjust those. Not too far. We don't want it exaggeratedly yellow, but we want it to look like a desert. When you've got it where you want it, you can click OK. And these camels need to be adjusted as well. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click on camels here. Sorry, I have to click on the layer over here and hit rasterize to turn it into an image file. And then I can apply this layer mask. So it's no longer a mask. Instead, you've just got an image that is only camels and that guy. The hill that they're on seems to go up steeper than the direction that they're walking in, so we're going to make a few adjustments there too. I'm going to grab my move tool and I'm going to put them maybe a bit farther back on the book, something like right there. I might even shrink them up some by going to Edit and then to Transform. And I want to scale them. So transform lets you change the image in a lot of different ways, the size and the shape and position. So I'm going to hit scale. If I drag the corner of this, you can make them whatever size you want. Occasionally you'll have an image that you're dragging and it will change its dimensions like this, and you don't necessarily want that. So if you hold down Shift, it often helps to keep everything the same. So I like this size a bit better. It looks like we're more back and they're actually on the dunes. So once you're okay with that, hit the Enter key, and they're still not walking at the right angle. So what I'm going to do is see if we can get away with a little bit of rotation first. So we'll go to Edit, Transform, and Rotate. So now I'm going to rotate them a smidgen like this. That actually works pretty well. It looks like they're walking up the hill. And I can hit OK. If I want to, like for this camel, I feel like it looks a little strange, like he's not going right in that direction. We can cut him out from the other camels and adjust his position separately. So you can get closer by hitting the zoom tool and dragging, or by holding down Alt on your keyboard and using your scroll button on your mouse. So this camel here, I feel like the rotation we did to him made him look a little bit strange. So I'm going to take this lasso tool, I'm going to cut out this camel. Easy peasy like that. Then I'm going to hit Control X to cut him out of the picture. Now when I paste him with Control V, he's in a separate layer from the other one. And we can grab the Move tool and we can put him wherever we want him to be. I want to transform him back to kind of how he was. So in this case, instead of going to Edit and Transform, I'm going to hit Control T, and that's the same thing. You can transform him like this, so that he looks a bit more natural. Now we have the choice to either get rid of this connection on his harness that we've broken, or we could draw him a new one. Either way, let's see what we can do as far as making him a new one. I'm going to go in and take the eraser tool and erase that bit, some of this extra white that he's got on him. If I try to erase this one, it will not work now, because they are now two different layers. I have to go to that layer with that camel to erase this. Now I might just take a paintbrush, I'll put on this camel layer. I'm going to rename this to one camel. And I will take, let's do it so that it looks nice. I'm going to take my pen tool, I'm going to click on here, I'm going to click down in the middle and drag it out a bit. So I've clicked and dragged without letting go. And this gives you some handles that adjust the curve of that line you just made. And then I'm going to click back up here and pull and adjust that as needed. Now we have a path that we can stroke. So we'll choose a color that we want to stroke it with. Let's make our chord like a darker, sort of a yellow orange, similar to what it was before. And then we want to Then we want to go over to paths. This is our path that we just made, this cute little path. And we want to stroke that path. So we are going to hit that, and it will stroke it with whatever brush that we had going on. Now, it's choppy. It's hard and it's choppy. So let's go back and change the brush that we're stroking with. Make it very small, only like 2 or 3 pixels. I'll just type it in, it's giving me a hard time. And keep it soft. Let's keep it like 40% soft. Now, if we stroke that path, it looks a lot more natural. It's still got the blue line in there. We can get rid of that by deleting our path. We'll click on our path, hit delete, and that path is gone, leaving just the cord behind for the camels to be pulled on. Kind of want to do it here too, because that looks wrong now. So we'll go back to our layers here, go to that layer, get our eraser, erase that cord, create a new path by clicking here, clicking somewhere in the middle, allowing it to hang down, and then by clicking back up on the camel and adjusting that angle as much as we need to, just like before. We'll go to our paths, we'll stroke that path. I have to go back and change the brush again, really. Okay, we'll select that brush, and then we've got our path stroked just like that. We can get rid of that path, we don't need that right now. Good, so now there's lines on both the camels, and they look the same. Perfect. To make it easy for my adjustments, I think I want my camels to be hooked back together again on the same layer. So I'm going to select one camel layer. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to select the other camel layer. I'm going to right click and I'm going to merge those layers so that now they are on the same layer once again. Awesome. They are awfully dark orangish at the moment. So just like I did with the book, I'm going to make a copy of them by right clicking and duplicating. And I'm going to hide that extra layer. Go to that one, Image Adjustments, and adjust their color balance so they're not as yellow or not as reddish. I want them to look like they belong on this actual book, like they're under the same sort of lighting. Beautiful. Another difference you'll see is that they have these dark shadows on them, the camels and the person walking, which our book does not have. So we can do some adjustment there too. If we click on our book, go to Image, Adjustments, and let's mess with the contrast and brightness. So brightness is how light the book is. Contrast is how much difference there is between the light and dark areas. So you can create something that's pretty bland and close together. You can create something that's kind of sharp. At some point you see that starts to look really fake. So we're going to just take our contrast up a smidgen. Maybe adjust the brightness. Actually, it was pretty good where it was. And we'll keep it like that. Another thing that's going to make it look more like these camels are actually walking on the book is to give them some shadows. That's probably the biggest thing we can do to help them out. So there's lots of different ways you can do shadows. I have a particular way that I like quite a bit, and we'll see how it looks. So I'm going to take this camel. I'm going to once again duplicate the camel layer. Boing. So you saw how it got a bit darker. We have two camel layers on there now. So I'm going to rename this one Shadow. I double clicked on that to be able to rename it. The shadow, of course, goes below the camels. So if we're on the Move tool, we can just push the down arrow to adjust it out from under the camel layer. And I'm going to hit Control A, which selects the whole thing. And now I'm going to go back into shadow on the layer right here, and I'm going to select pixels. So it looks the same as before, but sometimes it has different effects. So now the outside of our camels are completely selected. And what we're going to do is hit the delete key. So the camels are gone, but the outline where they were is still there. I'm going to go to the Paint Bucket tool. You might have to hold down your Gradient tool to get to it. Paint Bucket. Make sure you've got black selected as your front color, your foreground color, and then you just hit the paint bucket in there a few times until you make sure that all of the shadow is painted completely black. Now we're going to hit Control D to deselect, and we've got some shadows for camels. They are not in the right shape yet. So I'm going to go to Edit, and we're going to go to Perspective Warp. This lets you adjust the perspective of your piece. Make it look like it's going off in the distance. First step is going to be to draw a box around the camels just by clicking and dragging. But this box is as if we're looking straight out a window at them. And they're going away from us at an angle. So I want to kind of line that up with the angle they're in. So you can click a corner, drag it up, basically make it look like they're walking along the side of a wall that runs right along with them. So that way you have this perspective right. We're lining up the box with where they're actually moving off into the distance in the picture. So if we've got that more or less right, we just hit Enter now. And now we get to adjust it to a new perspective by taking one of the corners and dragging it down. We're going to basically lay them down on the ground now, like this. So we've taken our perspective box and pretty much just lay it down on the ground. Make some adjustments as needed. When we're good, we hit enter, and now we have our camel shadow. We can hit the move tool and adjust it right underneath the camels. We can nudge it a bit with the arrow keys to get it just where we need it to be. And it looks like they have shadows. Our perspective wasn't exactly on, so the man's shadow doesn't actually reach him. So what I'm going to do is just take this rectangle select tool. We're just going to grab his shadow, and then we're going to move it with the move tool to be where it needs to be under his feet. Perfect. Now I'm going to hit Control A to get the whole layer, and we need to make them look not quite as harsh, these shadows. A couple of things we can do is go up to Filter and Blur. Use our Gaussian blur, and we can move around in our window till we can see our camel shadow, so we can get a good look at them. When we're moving it, you can see how it is right now. When you let go, you'll see how it's going to be slightly blurred around the edges, and that looks pretty good. You can adjust it to make it more blurred. Eventually it'll disappear. So we're only going to blur it about 1.5 pixels worth and hit OK. So we get a blur on those, and then we're also going to lighten them up by going over here to opacity on the layers and turn down the opacity to a level that looks natural. So opacity is how transparent or not transparent it is. That looks about right. Alright, perfect. Maybe a bit more. So now it looks more like they're actually walking on the book. And we may actually want to add a bit of blur around the edges, because this guy's got kind of a hard outline, and he's walking on a part of the book that is somewhat blurred. So if we click on our camel layer now, we go back to Filter and to Blur and do that same thing, we can actually see how it's going to look here, or we can find them in the window. We don't need them to be as blurry, so maybe we'll just take it down to 1 pixel worth of blur. So then now they hopefully will look like they actually belong in this picture a little bit more.